Breaking news from Ethiopia. It seems that Tigray fighters have joined Fano fighters in the fight against the Ethiopian National Defense Force. Two reports for you, which to some extent confirm that Tigray fighters are on the ground supporting Fano fighters in Wollo, reportedly. Details for you in this video. Thank you for watching. Good to be with you. Before I explain the two developments, let me share two video clips with you. The video clips are not related to this topic. The video clips are about Egypt-Ethiopia tensions. Tensions ongoing for years, nothing new, but at the UN General Assembly session in New York, Egypt shared a charge sheet against Ethiopia. Egyptian representative's speak was full of accusations against Ethiopia. He accused Ethiopia of creating trouble in Somalia, in Eritrea, in the Horn of Africa. Ethiopian representative replied, but Egyptian attack on Ethiopia was very fierce at the UN General Assembly session. So I have two clips for you. First one shows Egyptian representative accusing Ethiopia. Second clip shows Ethiopian response. What are the two clips? Both are self-explanatory. What are the clips? Then we'll talk about TDF, Fano allies on the ground, not on paper. Watch the two clips.
The recent Ethiopian actions represent a new violation, adding to a long list of Ethiopian violations of international law, including disregard for the presidential statement issued by the Security Council on September 15th, 2021. Having said that, Mr. Chair, allow me also to reply to the false allegations by the Ethiopian representative. Egypt categorically rejects all the false allegations made by the Ethiopian representative in response to the Egyptian statement during the GA debate in this afternoon. The Ethiopian side must first reflect and look at itself if it wants to identify those who are truly undermining stability, peace, and security on the continent. Ethiopia is the one that signed a memorandum of understanding that threatens the unity and sovereignty of Somalia, a sister African state, by recognizing a secession of its territorial integrity. A state that repeatedly attacks the Sudanese Fashaqa and illicitly exploits its resources. This is Ethiopia, not Egypt. A state whose forces were rooted out of UNISFA peacekeeping mission. This is Ethiopia, not Egypt. A state that waged a war against Eritrea and sieged it for years and still threatens it by a new war to achieve its delusions of access to sea. This is Ethiopia, not Egypt. A state that operates forces in Somalia outside the AU banner. This is Ethiopia, not Egypt. Ethiopia, which violates the established rules of international law and disregards the established African principle of sanctity of borders, believes it can control the Nile waters and deprive the downstream countries, Egypt and Sudan, of their historical right to the river's waters. Ethiopia must stop immersing itself in illusions of power and control and realize that its false accusations are nothing but fabrications and delusions stemming from a troubled internal situation that seeks to export its internal problems and create imaginary enemies for domestic consumption.
Exercise of right of reply has been requested. I call on the representative of Ethiopia.
Mr. President, we ask for the floor in the exercise of the right of reply to the statement made by the Egyptian delegate against my country, Ethiopia. The unfounded claims we heard here today are also communicated to the Security Council. Ethiopia has provided a considered response based on truth and lessons from our knowledge of Egypt's baseless claims. Our position remains principled and clear. The Nile River ties Ethiopia, Egypt, and the 9 other countries of the Nile Basin with a natural bond. Ethiopia has taken all steps to preserve this bond. The contrast between Ethiopia's long-standing policy of cooperation and Egypt's continued hostility is starkly clear. Ethiopia abides by the international law principle of equitable and reasonable utilization in its use of the Nile River. Egypt, on the other hand, is invested in imposing what it calls its historic right. Ethiopia advances basin-wide cooperation along with its sisterly co-riparian countries. Egypt pushes for colonial-era bilateral commission that grants it unfettered authority over 10 African countries. Ethiopia seeks to develop the water to protect the human rights of our people for inadequate standard of living, to ensure access to clean drinking water, food, and electricity to power our homes, schools, hospitals, and factories. Egypt's attempt to internationalize one hydroelectric dam, one African river, is only another case of exploiting this platform for narrow political purposes and a cover-up for national and regional preoccupations.
Back to main news story. You know that 4 to 5 days ago, Fano fighters announced the start of conventional war in the Amhara region. They chose Wollo to start this conventional war in. Why? Because Wollo shares border with Tigray. Because if Wollo is under, if it comes under Fano control, ENDF's advance towards Assab through Afar region could be prevented. So on day one, when Tafra Mamu gave an interview and he announced the start of conventional war in Wollo, and he said that Fano won't allow Ethiopian government forces to attack Tigray or Eritrea, because if today Eritrea is attacked, tomorrow TPLF will be attacked, and then the next day Fano will be attacked. On that day, if you remember, I said that I have no doubt that what is happening in Wollo is a joint plan by 3 players, TPLF, Fano, and Eritrea. They made this plan to start the war from Wollo. Will they be able to continue or not? That remains to be seen. But now we have received information which shows that Tigray fighters on the ground, they're on the ground in Wollo helping Fano fighters. That is why Fano chose Wollo to be the start of this conventional war. Firstly, I have a clip for you. This clip was released by Fano fighters yesterday. It shows ENDF soldiers in the custody of Fano fighters. It shows ENDF prisoners. If you listen closely, you would hear Tigrayan music in the background. Isn't it weird for Fano fighters to be listening to Tigrayan music? Yes, music has no language. Music has no boundaries, rather. Amhara people do listen to Tigrayan music. But it's weird for me that Fano fighters are listening to Tigrayan music. Does it mean that Tigray fighters are there on the ground supporting Fano fighters, and these Tigray fighters were listening to Tigrayan music when this video of ENDF POWs was recorded? I think it makes sense. Watch this clip. Then we have another report confirming alliance between TDF and Fano on the ground in Wollo. Watch this clip. I am not a Tigrinya speaker or Amharic speaker, but I confirmed from several people that the music in the background is Tigrinya music. Second report is about a clash between two divisions of the Tigray Defense Force, Tigray military. Army 24 and Army 43 clashed. In a live chat 48 hours ago, I talked about it, if you remember. And I said I would hopefully find out the reasons what led to this clash. Now, what is being confirmed by more than one sources is that Army 43 and Army 24 of Tigray military clashed because of the involvement of Tigray fighters in Wollo in support of Fano fighters. Army 24 fighters actually entered Wollo alongside Fano fighters. They fought the Ethiopian National Defense Force. That is why ENDF suffered so much loss in Wollo, because ENDF was partially encircled. ENDF did not receive any reinforcements. Attack was sudden. No one was expecting this attack. So Army 24 of Tigray entered Wollo to support Fano fighters. This Army 24 then sought reinforcements. Army 24 is deployed in southern Tigray, controlled by Zenabo Gebre Medin government. Now, this operation in Wollo by Fano started after dismantlement of Hafto Kiros government. EPLF Tigray military removed Hafto Kiros. New government was put in place in southern Tigray, and after that, Wollo Fano started operation. All that, I think, is linked. So, Army 24 requested reinforcements, asking Army 43 members to enter the war. But Army 43 commander refused. That led to start a fighting between Army 24 and 43, and several soldiers on the two sides were injured, who were treated in Lamata, in Mehoni, in Makala reported. Now, no one is going to admit that. Rather, you'll see a denial, because now this issue is being raised. You will see denial. Tigray military, TPLF, Tigray Peace and Security Bureau, they might issue statements saying, no, it's a propaganda against Tigray military. We haven't joined any war against, any fight against military, Ethiopian military in support of Fano. Plain lies are being told. That is what they would say. But on the ground sources are confirming that Fano and Tigray fighters are collaborating in Wollo. Thank you for watching.